You can hear the muffled sounds of desperation, the questions that linger in the air, and the tension that hangs like a storm cloud waiting to burst. It's a mother's voice, broken and pleading, but also filled with uncertainty. Hello? Yeah, but I don't want to go to the bathroom until you tell me about my son. Tell me if he's alive or not. The raw, trembling words of a mother who's just shot her son in a moment of rage, confusion, and helplessness. This tragic incident took place in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, in a neighborhood that was supposed to be a quiet, peaceful place for a family to live and grow. But on this fateful day, it became the backdrop for a heart-wrenching crime, one that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. Lauandra Williams, 45 years old, is sitting in an interrogation room, answering questions with a heaviness that only a mother in her position could understand. Her son, 21-year-old Jiad Hughes, was lying unresponsive after a gunshot wound. Police had been called to her apartment on Drew Heights Place in Ohio after reports of gunfire. Upon arriving, they found Jiad on the floor, critically injured. Who pulled the trigger, and why? This is where our story begins. Reynoldsburg, located in the Columbus, Ohio metropolitan area, is a suburban town known for its proximity to Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base, its family-friendly atmosphere, and its charming local parks. The town offers hiking trails, picnic spots, and a golf course that locals cherish. Yet, like many cities in America, Reynoldsburg also faces its own set of challenges, including safety concerns, as violent crime rates are higher than in many other communities across the United States. And it was this environment, coupled with the struggles of a single mother trying to balance work and family, that led Lauandra Williams to make a life-altering decision. She bought a gun. In fact, she bought two. One for herself and one for her son. This decision wasn't born out of malice or violence, but rather out of fear. A fear that her environment, her personal situation, and her own life might be at risk. But as we've seen too many times, good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. Lauandra was born in March 1979. And throughout her life, she worked hard to make ends meet. She ran her own in-home healthcare business, Healing Hands and Hearts LLC, which provided vital services to those in need, including many veterans. This business was her livelihood. Without it, she couldn't support herself or her family. But her work schedule was taxing, often requiring her to travel long distances to take care of her clients. Her car wasn't just a vehicle, it was essential to her work. But that car, the very car that Lauandra relied on for her business, would soon be the spark that ignited a devastating chain of events. On June 24, 2002, Lauandra gave birth to Jiad, and she raised him with love, despite the challenges of being a single mother. Jiad's father had moved on and started a new family, but Lauandra remained a constant presence in his life. Described by family and friends as quiet but confident, Jiad was a young man with a lot of potential. He was active in his church, passionate about gospel music, and after graduating from Groveport Madison High School in 2021, he enlisted in the military in 2022. By early 2024, he had returned home on leave. But the tension between mother and son had been mounting. For months, their relationship had been strained. What had once been simple disagreements had now turned into full-blown arguments. And it wasn't just about petty things anymore. The stress of living together, the pressure of responsibilities, and the growing independence of Jiad had begun to take its toll. In early February 2024, things took a dark turn. A text exchange between Lauandra and Jiad revealed a brewing conflict. Jiad had borrowed Lauandra's car and hadn't returned it when she expected. When she texted him, asking where the car was, Jiad didn't respond with much consideration. It was clear this wasn't just about a car anymore. There was a deeper rift between them. Later that day, Lauandra returned home to find Jiad at the apartment, but the car was still missing. Tension built as she confronted him. Voices were raised, tempers flared, and things quickly escalated. Inside the apartment, it was more than just words. The argument took a physical turn. Lauandra grabbed a knife, and it was only when her daughters tried to intervene that Jiad managed to wrestle the knife away from her. But that wasn't the end of it. No, things only grew more intense. Lauandra stormed out of the apartment, her rage boiling over. Her daughters locked the door behind her, afraid of what might happen next. They knew she kept a handgun in her car, and they feared what their mother might do next. Meanwhile, Jiad, determined to leave, packed his bags. But Lauandra wasn't done yet. She returned to the car, grabbed the handgun, and fired. Jiad was struck in the back at close range. The tragic outcome of this shooting was inevitable. Jiad was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but it was too late. The damage was done. Lauandra was arrested at the scene and brought to the police station for questioning. The detectives had already spoken to witnesses, including Lauandra's daughters, who had provided their accounts of the events. They described how Lauandra had become the aggressor in the argument, how the confrontation escalated, and how Jiad had attempted to defend himself. Now they needed to hear from Lauandra herself. What really happened inside that apartment? Was it a moment of blind rage? Was it premeditated? Or was it a tragic act of self-defense gone terribly wrong? Lauandra's response to questioning reveals a woman grappling with emotions she could barely contain. She talks about the argument over the car, how she became frustrated with Jiad, and how things spiraled out of control. She talks about feeling afraid and overwhelmed, how she had never been in a situation like this before. And when asked why she pulled the trigger, her answer is heartbreaking. She felt that Jiad was coming at her, that he would hurt her. But did she truly believe he had a weapon? The details are murky, but one thing is clear. A mother, overwhelmed by stress, frustration, and years of silent suffering, made a decision that would forever change her life and the lives of those around her. The truth is often harder to face than the lie. During the interrogation, Lauandra's anguish becomes palpable. She expresses regret, confusion, and sorrow as she realizes the irreversible consequences of her actions. "I killed my son," she admits, breaking down. Her tears flood the room, and she pleads for understanding. "I'm so sorry," she says repeatedly, unable to fully comprehend the weight of what she has done. Detectives, though sympathetic, understand that the truth is the only thing that can bring justice to the situation. And while they do not condone her actions, they also begin to understand the pressures she had been under, the emotional and financial strain that had built up over the years. But the reality remains. Jiad is gone, and Lauandra's life will never be the same again. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Lauandra was charged with murder and felonious assault. The court set her bond at $1 million, signaling just how serious the case was. As the legal process unfolded, Lauandra's emotional state became a focal point. In less than 6 months, Lauandra accepted a plea deal, agreeing to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 years. It wasn't an easy decision for her family or for the prosecution, but it was the result of a complex case filled with layers of pain, stress, and unresolved trauma. 2 lives were lost that day, one in the form of Jiad, whose promising future was tragically cut short, and another in Lauandra, whose entire world crumbled under the weight of her own actions. And now, as her family picks up the pieces of their shattered lives, they are left to grapple with the grief and the lessons learned from this devastating tragedy. But the story doesn't end there. Lauandra's daughters have spoken out on social media, expressing their feelings of loss, regret, and pain. One daughter wrote, "I forgive her, and my mom is a great mother. She always tried to be so strong. She had no one to talk to, no one to take her children when she just needed a break. No one was there. I watched her suffer all my life. I heard her cries, but it took my brother to die for everyone to say how much she was battling. Another daughter, reflecting on the impact of the tragedy, stated, "She was my father's caretaker. I agree with you. She was not in her right mind. We loved her. My dad loved her. She was always nice." These posts reflect the complexity of Lauandra's situation. It wasn't just about a moment of rage. It was about years of silent suffering, emotional strain, and the pressures of life. And while no amount of understanding can change the outcome, it offers us a glimpse into the heartbreak and complexity of the human experience. The decision to keep a firearm for protection ultimately played a fatal role in the conflict, and the culmination of so much emotional stress and unresolved issues led to one final tragic act. In the end, 2 lives were forever changed, one lost, one behind bars, and a family left to pick up the pieces.